Have you ever been around somebody that totally drained you? The more you were in their presence, it just exhausted you? Well, you might have been in the presence of an energy vampire. Sometimes they're called emotional vampires, but I prefer the energy vampire term because they really do affect your energy. And they affect the energy of probably almost everyone they come into contact with. So I'm going to talk about how most people encounter someone like this at some point in their life. Either they're in your family or among your friends, or could be a boyfriend or girlfriend you hook up with at some point in your life. And if you've ever had the experience of dealing with one in an intense kind of situation, you'll never forget it. Trust me, never forget it. So let's talk about what it is, first of all. So, an energy vampire or an emotional vampire, whichever one you would rather use, they don't intentionally behave this way. In other words, they don't intentionally drain your energy. In fact, they're very often not even aware of what they're doing. A lot of times it's just comes from an internal wound they have, stemming probably from their childhood, where they didn't get their needs met, or some other kinds of familial issues that happened to them. And so they grow up with these dysfunctional kinds of behaviors. But it's even more than that. It's really an energy zapping kind of thing. In other words, they draw their energy from everyone around them, and they're usually not conscious of it. And that's what's kind of sad about it. I mean, these are not psychopaths. This is not somebody that we would say is a sociopath or a psychopath. They're not doing that intentionally. Someone who's a sociopath, they know what they're doing. Psychopaths, same sort of thing. They pretty much know what they're doing, but an energy vampire probably doesn't. And again, these stem from long ago wounds that were created in them to cause them to behave in a certain way. Now, unfortunately, they tend to have a negative effect on almost everyone they come into contact with, unless it's a very superficial contact. Because again, they're draining you. And they do this through several behaviors. So let me first give you an example of this, and then I'll go into the kinds of behaviors you can expect from an energy vampire. In other words, what kinds of things they're doing, and then also how to protect yourself, because there are important things you have to do to protect yourself from this. So in my lifetime, I've known a couple of friends that were energy vampires. I also had a grandmother who was one. My dad's mother, my little Italian grandmother, who I loved very much, was an energy vampire. And it's really interesting because the first time I actually heard that term was in reference to my grandmother from my mother when I was a teenager. And she said to me one time, your grandmother, she really zaps your energy. I don't know if she used the term vampire, but she said, she really drains your energy. And she meant like everyone, not just me. She drained my mother's energy. She drained everybody's. And she did. I mean, she really did. The way my grandmother behaved was that she was very self-absorbed. Everything kind of was about her. And she had a lot of natural, like, drama seeking behavior. Like, she was always way over the top about things. One of the things she used to do the last couple of years of her life is I would usually call her on a daily basis. She lived in senior assisted living, basically. I mean, she could get around and stuff, but she got her meals and stuff like that there. And I would call to check in on her, and then I would usually go to the store for her a couple times a week, and I would come by and see her 2 or 3 times a week. And every time I called her, I got the same drama. I would go, well, Nana, how are you? And she would go, Oh dear, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to make it. And then she would go on about she had all these fears. One of her big fears was going blind because her mother had gone blind from facial cancer when back in the 1930s. And my grandmother had nursed her during that time, and I think she was really traumatized by it. But she was so scared she was going to go blind, and she did have some, eye issues as she got older, but she wasn't even close to going blind. And so, but she just thought that was going to happen. And so she had she had this story she would pretty much tell me on a regular basis when I called her. She would say, "Well, now you know, dear, if I go blind, I'm going to feel my way down the hallway of my building." And they had a pool in the basement, like an indoor pool in the basement of this senior housing. And she said, "I'm going to feel my way down there, and I'm going to go down and I'm going to drown myself in the pool because I can't go blind." And I'd be like, okay. Like, she said it so often that I know she was kind of fixated on it, but I also knew my grandmother pretty well to know that she wasn't actually going to do that. But this was like a drama thing for her. She had to always be stirring something up. She also loved to gossip about people and, make stuff up about, embellish it, what she had heard about people. So she did that as well. So that was kind of some of the behaviors you would expect from an energy vampire. And every time I did go see her, I would feel pretty drained. Like I would go in and sit with her for an hour or two, and I would say the majority of the times I went, I would be pretty drained. So she was the first person I really remember being in contact with that used to do this. And again, I know it wasn't conscious. She didn't do it on purpose. This was, based on her own issues, her, very deep-seated wounds from childhood. And, but I don't know if she ever realized what kind of effect she had on people, because she pretty much drained everybody. I mean, she was a force to be reckoned with. She had a very powerful personality, and she could be very funny, and she could be very entertaining, and she had a very quick mind, and her mind was sharp till she died, and she ended up dying when she was just about 90 years old. But I don't know that she ever realized the effect she really had on people. So that was kind of my first experience with it. And then later on in life, I've encountered a couple of other people that were friends that were also energy vampires. Again, I know these people did not intend to be, but they were. Let's talk about, again, some kind of manifestations of this in people. In other words, what do energy vampires, how do they behave? So one of the things they do is they play the victim a lot. They play the victim a lot. And, it's like, oh, woe is me. And, things are so tough for me. My grandmother played that one up a lot, I remember. And they blame everyone else, and they don't really take responsibility for their own actions. And so that's a big part of it. They also have narcissistic tendencies, which means that, it is all about them. They're very self-absorbed. They turn everything back to them. And they basically don't know how to truly empathize with other people. Now, I wouldn't say they're a true narcissist in the sense of somebody who has something called narcissistic personality disorder, but they have a lot of the same traits of it. And so they don't really empathize with others. I mean, they can kind of put on an act that they do, but they don't really empathize with other people. Again, as I pointed out earlier, they create unnecessary drama. And that's a big one. I mean, drama is their middle name. And they just make, mountains out of molehills. They make a problem out of something that wasn't a problem. And if it even is a problem, they make it a much bigger problem. The other thing they do is, or they can do, is exploit your kindness. In other words, they want a lot from you. And they're always, asking you for, this or that or whatever, an extra favor or something. And they may reciprocate sometimes, but often they don't reciprocate. In other words, they're not offering to do you a favor. And so that can be very draining in itself. I think the thing that is just most noticeable to me is that when you're in the presence of somebody with this, you feel drained. If you're in touch with your own nervous system and your own psyche and whatever as you're sitting there, believe me, you will feel drained after, a few minutes, half an hour, definitely after an hour or two, you will feel drained. And it just depends on the intensity of the kind of energy zapping they tend to do. So, how can you protect yourself against people with this? That's the next thing to really deal with. The first most important thing is set boundaries. You have to set boundaries with people that are energy vampires. If you don't, they will steamroll you. They will just, and you won't know what hit you, and you'll be exhausted mentally and physically, and you won't know what happened. So once you realize that they might be this kind of person and you still have to connect with them in some way, you set boundaries, which means you tell them what you're able to do for them or not able to do for them. A long time ago, I used to have a friend, and she used to do this with everybody, not just anyone that was a suspected energy vampire. She used to basically say to people, this is what I'm able to do with you or for you or whatever. And then that's it. Like, she was very clear in setting boundaries with most people she knew. Like she said, I'm great about, we could get together for breakfast once or twice a month, or we could go out to dinner, or we could go on a day trip maybe once every 3 months. But she was very clear how much time of her time she was willing to spend with various people. And at the time, I didn't really know what to think of it at the time because, I had never had anybody do that before, really. But as years went by and I realized, that wasn't a bad idea. That was a great idea, that sometimes you do have to let people know this is what I'm able to do. Or, or doing favors. Like if there was a real crisis or something, I could call her, of course, and this friend would, do what she could. But in general, she had pretty hard, fast boundaries. And I respect her for that. I respected her for that. And with, the hindsight of time, I actually respect her even more about it because now I really understand it, especially as I'm getting older. She was older than I was at the time. And now I realize as you get older, you really have to be able to do boundaries well because you only have so much energy. You don't have as much energy as you did when you were younger. So you cannot allow somebody to drain that from you. So you have to set boundaries with these people. Now, if it's a member of your family, like it was with my grandmother, it's a little harder. But without even realizing the full extent of what was going on with my grandmother, I did set boundaries with her. I told her, I remember saying, I can only go to the store for you like 2 times a week. So make sure you know what you want me to get. And, and I'll talk to you on the phone. And I also told her I'll call you every day and check in with you on the phone. But I didn't, she lived about, I don't know, maybe 12 miles away from where I lived at the time. And I had my son was young at the time and I was working and I couldn't go over there every single day. I just couldn't. So I was very careful with my grandmother to let her know what I was willing to do, what I wasn't able to do, and also that I loved her. Because with somebody in your family, if you love them, you've also got to make sure they know that, even when you're setting boundaries. So setting boundaries is just paramount. That's the biggest step you can do because that kind of cuts down on the effect that an energy vampire can have on you. If you're able to, if the person is a member of your family or somebody really close to you or whatever, where you don't want to sever the relationship, then again, find ways to work with that by setting boundaries or whatever. But if it is a friend that you realize it could go either way. You like them in some ways, but maybe they're so draining you can't take them. Then at some point you have to, as they say, fish or cut bait. You have to basically make a decision. about what you're going to do for your own safety and your own sake. Because sometimes it's probably wise to not continue that relationship. And that's a decision you have to make on an individual basis. It's not an easy thing to do, especially if there's things you like about the person, but it is really important. Again, as I've always said in my videos, you have to take care of yourself first. If you don't take care of yourself first, who else is going to take care of you, first of all? But second of all, you can't help anybody else if you're not taking good care of yourself. Just bottom line. Something that's very important to know about energy vampires, and maybe this will help you with the decision whether to keep someone like this in your life or not, or what kind of boundaries to set. They are not likely going to change. They're probably not capable of changing this about themselves. It is a very deep-seated issue that has affected their psyche. And honestly, unless they were really aware of it, highly self-aware, and they were willing to go in for lots of counseling and lots of inner work that they might have to do, they're not going to change. So thinking that somebody who's an energy vampire will just, change all of a sudden, no, it's not happening. They're not going to do it. So keep that in mind as you move forward with this, because if they're not capable of change, then again, it falls to you to make the decision if you're willing to keep this person in your life or not. And very often you might have to just walk away. Again, unless it's a family member and you love them and you don't want to, I would never have turned my back on my grandmother. So that is an important thing. But it is so important to practice good self-care here and to see to your own needs. There are some things in a spiritual sense you can do as well to protect yourself. You can picture yourself surrounded by white light when you go in, and let's say you're meeting with somebody and maybe going out for lunch with them or something, and they're an energy vampire. You can, before you even get there and see them, you can picture yourself surrounded by white light, surrounded by a bubble of protection, and that actually might help in some ways. I didn't know enough about spiritual energy and things like that back in the days when I was dealing with my grandmother, so I really didn't practice that. I didn't know how to do that, but I do believe it can help. So if you're more spiritually minded and want to try something like that, and it's always good to even, kind of say a prayer of protection for yourself. If you're more religious, put it in a religious context. If you're more spiritual, kind of make it more free form. But you basically say, you ask your angels or, Jesus or whoever it is to protect you. And, it certainly can't hurt to do that. I don't know how much it helps. I'm not making any guarantees, but I will tell you it can't hurt, and it certainly might help the situation. That's it for today. Until next time, be well, be kind, keep moving forward, and take care. Bye.